everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm your host for my podcast show, Surviving Your Journey Towards Success. And today's show, I have a special guest, Mr. Mitchell Levy. Let's go ahead and get started. And before I do that, I love to always start my podcast by saying that in this day, I am thankful to the prime creator of all things, that I give thanks for this blessing and opportunity, that I will use it for the greater good. Okay, so welcome my survivors of the journey to my podcast that aims to inspire and motivate you, that you will continue to have joyfulness in your heart and peace of mind, and for your sustained success. All right, let's get started. I was going to go through all of his accomplishments, but he's like a Renaissance man. And I should know that because I wrote a column about the Harlem Renaissance. And he has actually done everything. He's a published author. He's a TEDx speaker. He's an international bestseller. He have his own pretty much all-in-one where they can help other people to publish their book, ghostwrite it. I mean, he's a motivator speaker. He says everything. So I'm very excited to have him today. And we're going to kind of probe his mind, get into what's motivate him, what some good motivational tactics he can share with my listeners that I do at my podcast here at Surviving Your Journey. So I hope you enjoy the show. Let's go ahead and get into this. And I like to kind of just start off with my guest speakers talking about their road to success. So, Mr. Levy, go ahead and share with us in your success in your life journey, the many roads that I just kind of named off. Which one can you say that requires the most determination and focus that got you to where you are now?
Great to be here. My name's Mitchell Levy. I'm a global credibility expert, and I work with busy, successful professionals who recognize the need for more credibility. They want that credibility through a book, but they have no time. Yeah. So, Nichel, here's what you got to think about. 4 months from today, we will have ghostwritten, published, distributed, and made that person, if it was you, an Amazon best-selling author, and you've spent as little as 5 hours. So we literally press the easy button.
You didn't lie when you said you had your easy button right near you.
I even got two of them.
You got two?
It's funny, though. I got two easy buttons. When you press them together, they just don't sound any better.
That was easy.
I guess it does. I guess I kind of heard that. Okay.
I only got one, so I definitely need to up my game. So basically, you like a one-stop shop for busy people, because like myself, I'm still trying to write my third book, and it's been over a year because I'm so busy. So that can help people that want to take that step, but they just don't have the time. So you provide the resources for that.
I have to think about that. I don't think I've ever. As soon as you said that word, it got me thinking. One-stop shop for busy people. So I think I'm working really hard to be that. So let me tell you where I am at the moment. Between 2005 and 2017, we published the proverbial but I've got a huge team behind me. We published over 800 books. And what I can honestly say, between 2005 and 2017, we were serving the wrong audience. And the audience we were serving at that time, I kind of thought it was me. It was the audience of the individual who we wanted to make it easier for them to write their own books. And I did a TED Talk at the end of 2017, got me thinking about the world in a different way. And what I kind of realized is I needed to change who I was, because the audience I really wanted to serve is a person who's less concerned about the actual message, i.e. they have to spend all this time writing their own book, and more concerned about the fact that the message is in this credibility piece called a book, and we give it to them. And so 2018 was creating a writing school, putting people through the school, having a bunch of graduates, putting the process in place to make that happen. 2019 is execution and having tools around it. And then what I really like, and I'm going to go back to the one-stop shop for busy professionals, what I'm actually doing now, because we are so systematized, because it is such a good process from day one to 4 months from now having a book, what I'll have to say, and by the way, publishers don't talk this way, it's never about the book. right? It's not just about the book, because if you did a book and you didn't tell anyone about it, it's like the tree falling in a forest and no one's around, it didn't fall.
Yeah.
So what has to happen is you need to take this asset called a book and make sure you put it in the hands of the prospects who may want to hire you, who actually need your service. What I've been doing is basically being a partner collection vehicle and finding the type of people who can, and then fill in the blank. I've got a partner I work with, they do a 10-city tour. I've got other partners that do integrated marketing. I have partners who, and you just fill in the blank, who do podcasting or find you for podcasts. So the thing is, I'm staying very singularly focused on bringing out the best of the expert so they can have a book that easily demonstrates their credibility to others. And then I'm bringing in partners who I know, like, and trust, who can then fill in the bigger picture. So I believe you gave me, I'm going to think about this more, so I'm not going to publicly say yes today, but I believe the one-stop shop for busy professionals sounds like a really beautiful tagline.
Well, when you think about it, that's what, because for me, like I said, personally, I've been trying to finish to write my book, and then the process after that, like you said, you have to network, you have to promote it. That takes more time. And so we get caught up in our everyday busy responsibilities. So it's good to have like a service. I know when I was reading over your profile and what you do, I was like, wow, that's really cool. Because like my publisher for the other two books, they just called me the other day and they say, oh, we could do some marketing for you, drop this big dollar amount, but it's like one project for a short period of time. It's just not really all integrated. So like a one-stop top shop framework makes you like you coming in to get all the services that you need, because as an author you really have to have the whole 360. I would say you got to put all the elements in there.
Nichel, I'm so with you. I don't want to be, and this is today, this is 2019. Maybe it changes in 2020 or 2021, but I don't want to be the company that under my brand, we do all of it and it's nestled and listed under the brand AHAthat. What I want to be able to do is tell you what we do, and we do it really well, and then tell you who our trusted partners are. For instance, there's a guy I work with who's using LinkedIn to fill my calendar with strategy calls, right? So if you want to use that guy, he's going to do the same for you, right? But it's not, I don't want you to buy the AHAthat LinkedIn service. I want you to buy him, right? And I think in today's world, because everyone has one of those cameras and everyone has one of these microphones, what's important is having credibility. And it's about sharing who can do what and making sure if you're buying a package set of solutions, who's doing each piece of it for you, who's responsible, what are they going to do for what price point, what KPIs, key performance indicators are they going to tell you, how are they measuring their results over time, and what happens if they miss their KPIs. And all that conversation needs to happen before you hire somebody.
Yeah, I agree. I like the whole concept in a sense that basically it's good networking. And when you have good networking, I think that's part of the root of success, because it's rooted and you get to grow and meet different elements of people that can help the overall 360, I would say, project you're trying to execute. In this case, promoting your book, which shows the credibility in what you're trying to communicate in a literary way. Yeah.
Done. So I'll add to it. The thing that most authors need to get over the hurdle, it has nothing to do with a book. It technically has nothing to do with you. What you need to do if you want to be successful in today's world, first, if you watch my TED Talk, you'll know that the primary focus of that TED Talk is we do business with those that you know, like, and trust. So what has to happen is you need to be known, you need to be liked, you need to be trusted. And then what's interesting about the trust piece is demonstrating the types of things that allow you to be trusted. And that asset called a book, that is one piece of the credibility associated with trust. It's one of those things. If you have a book, and now here's the important part. People like to write a book about their life story or about the journey they made. And nobody really cares. And I don't mean to be offensive to anyone. They don't care unless, if your job is to help other people move on that same life journey, then people care. But many people have an absolutely beautiful life and they want to write a memoir, and then they want Oprah to find the memoir and or Tom Hanks do a movie about them, right? And, or Spielberg. And so what's interesting, for those people who have a beautiful life, here's what I suggest. Reach out to Nichel Anderson to come up with 4 questions. Hold a camera to yourself, or have somebody hold a camera and answer those 4 questions in 15-minute segments, and then put that on YouTube or Vimeo, and guess what? Your memoir is now done. If you want to do a book, there's one single purpose in today's world for a book, and that is that book needs to help you open the doors so that you can then have conversations with people so you can close more business.
Have like a main theme to connect with other people that can use it beyond just telling your life story.
Because it's who are you?
Yeah.
Right? And so what I often say, Nichel, is I say, and I'm now doing a whole video series. So I have a show called Thought Leader Life, and I'm doing a video series on credibility. First question I ask people is, what is your CPOP? What is your customer point of pain? And the important element is to be able to both identify your customer and their pain point quickly. Because if you can do that, what's really fascinating, it then becomes a lot easier for people to gravitate to you and you to gravitate to your audience. Right? And just so you know, the title of your book is your CPOP.
Well, that lures people in.
Well, I've got my current book. Now, this is now old, so it's a couple years old. My current book, and for those listening, I'm holding up a beautiful orange book. It's a picture of me with a blue hat on it. And
you look handsome.
My current Oh, you're so kind. Thank you.
Being seen and being heard as a thought leader.
Yeah. So here's what's fascinating. Now, right now, the book I'm in the midst of writing is on credibility, because I'm now calling myself a global credibility expert. That's what I do. So I need a book on credibility. Thought leadership was not a bad place. It's just a much broader vehicle. What I want to say is, and so imagine this. You've been into one of those meetings where there's 20 or 30 people introducing themselves for 15 seconds each.
Yes.
Yeah, and you know what they say, I'm an Amazon best-selling author, a motivational coach, a life coach, a speaker, or from around the world. I mean, they say all this stuff, but by the third or fourth person, you have no idea what everyone is. So I say those same things, but I use those as verbs, as adjectives. I have one noun in how I present myself, and I'm going to do this in a little bit. I want to present myself, and the one noun is the title of my book. Right. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to hold up my book. Okay. And let me introduce myself, if you don't mind.
Go ahead. Okay.
I'm Mitchell Levy, global credibility expert, TEDx speaker, international best-selling author of the book, Being Seen and Being Heard as a Thought Leader. And what I do is I typically take my fingers and I run down the title of my book when I say that. And my only expectation is, if you're in the audience and you want to be seen, you want to be heard, you want to be a thought leader, you're going to say, I should talk to Mitchell. That's what your book needs to do for you, is when you say the title of your book, the person who is your prospect, or the person who knows your prospect, is going to say, I got to introduce you to so-and-so.
Yeah. In a short few words, you should be able to sell the message of the book and your ability to be able to connect with others. Yeah.
Ding, 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 ding.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
That's influential. That is leadership to me. Prestige leadership is being influential in a way you can construct your message that is direct to the people that you're trying to influence. At least that's how I position it.
I agree. So to add to that, in today's world, because everyone has a camera, everyone has a microphone, how do you get known? And how do people reach you? And the best vehicle, bar none, if you can solve somebody's problem. So let's say you one of your prospects has a problem and they go, oh my God, I have a problem. Who can I talk to? And the friend they asked knows you, because referrals come with it a set of trust.
That's
now,
true.
What happens, what I do, this is where I fit in. If they go to their friend Google and they type in, how do I solve this problem? And your book title pops up and it's an Amazon best-selling book, guess what? It's almost the same as their best friend. Not quite, because the best friend has certainly more weight. But that's what we do.
Yeah. I think that's good, because it's all that complete, circle of presenting your asset, which is the book, having that right total, building that credibility. And that's what matters. Yeah.
Yep, beautiful.
Yeah, and for me, when I look at books, I really do care about the title. I care about the author too, their background, what they bring into it, and that helps me to connect a bit with the book that they wrote. It does matter. Yeah, influence is key whenever you try to make that presentation. So overall, you said you're working on a new book, right?
Yeah. So as a business, so I know this is so interesting. I get so excited about what I'm doing. So what we do, as I mentioned, is we'll create that book and it's a really beautiful program, but we charge $12,500 for that program.
Yeah.
And for many people, for those who are the right audience, they actually ask me, why is it so inexpensive? For those people, because we deliver about $60,000 worth of services. I mean, it's a really beautiful package. Now, for people who are not quite there, or they're not 100% sure they're CPOP or need to learn a little bit more, we've created something that made it easy. You've heard of and dealt with anthology books. That's when a lot of people contribute to a particular book.
Yes.
So we created software to make anthology books easy. So we created software so that the person who's running the anthology book can now go out, and I like the number 40, so having 40 contributors as part of the book. So the person who's now running the anthology book can actually go out to 40 people and ask them to contribute, and they're contributing both content and money, and our software helps facilitate that.
Oh, wow.
And so the really cool part, so by the way, here's what's fascinating. Imagine actually having a book where you make money. So our authors who are doing anthology books, they're actually making money. And what's interesting is there's a number of different ways to collect content. So one way to collect content, and I have a book, I'll share this and I'll let you know about it. We have a book, it's called The C-Suite Executive's Guide to Success.
I saw that.
And there are 50,000 members in the C-Suite organization. Now, there's also, this particular book is written by the C-Suite network advisors, and there's 200 network advisors. So we went out to the network advisors and said, hey, how'd you like to contribute a book? And 40 of them said yes. And what I can show you is we actually have a page on the book where it lists the 40 people's names, their LinkedIn profiles, the AHA messages, and it's a powerful book because we have feedback from 40 people. Now, what's interesting, what we did for that one is we created a Google form, and we sent people to the Google form, and they answered a bunch of questions, and then my team grabbed the content and wrote the book. Another way to collect content, and this is what I'm doing, is imagine if you're doing a book. So, for instance, I'm doing a book on credibility, and imagine if I interview 40 people, and those 40 people are then part of the book. So I help grab their content and include them in a book. Imagine the journey that Mitchell Levy, is taking as I talk to 40 people about credibility. Actually, I'm going to talk to 500 people about credibility and then pick 40 of them to be part of the book. So imagine the journey I'm taking and the evolution of me at the end of doing 500 interviews versus where I am now. So imagine if you took the journey of creating a book on a particular topic, and instead of just sending them to a Google form or asking people to share content with you, you actually interview them to extract the content. What's fascinating, you're going to learn, you're going to grow, and during that journey, you're going to be presented with a whole lot of opportunity. And so the presence that come to you, if you're present, is going to be huge.
Yeah, that's a lot of interaction, a lot of networking, a lot of gathering more information, connecting with people. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I saw that, the C-Suite Executive Guide to Success on your website. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah,
cool.
Good. Yeah, and with that overall, that theme in that book, it's like hones on leadership, right? I read something about, I think you wrote an article. Was it Lindsay?
Lindsay Hazlett is the co-author with me on that book, and she's part of that C-Suite network.
Oh, yeah.
She is a daughter of Jeffrey Hazlett. Jeffrey is the primary person who's driving the C-Suite network, and they have a number of different organizations, lots of things they're doing, a very, very interesting organization worth paying attention to. Yeah. And that's the C-Suite network. So you can Google Jeffrey Hazlett or C-Suite network and see.
Exactly. Yeah. I saw that it honed on great leadership. And I remember on an article that I ran across, it said it was entitled, Overcome the Difficulties of Being a Leader. Which is a good aspect to look at. What can you recommend for those that are in leadership or management? How can you paraphrase of how they can overcome difficulties of being a leader? What are your thoughts on that?
A thing that immediately pops to mind is very simple. So I'll give you two answers, but we'll start with the first one. Feel free just to Google my name. It's Mitchell Levy and then the word TED Talk. So Mitchell, last name Levy, and then TED Talk. And if you watch the TED Talk, it'll be a beautiful 17 minutes, 34 seconds of your life. And what I talk about is we're in the midst of the most massive transformation that humankind has gone through. We're moving from the industrial age to the social age. And between 1920 and 2019, we've made it 50% of the way there. That other 50% is happening in the next decade or two. So the interesting part is, how do we survive? How can we be better as both as humans and as leaders?
Yes.
And what I say, I came up with a fundamental answer to that question, which answers your question. People do business. People want to interact with. People want to hang out with, be part of, follow people that they know, like, and trust. Engagement. So the question is, and so what I talk about in the TED Talk is, how do you be known? Obviously, if people are working for you, you're known. But how can you be liked? Short answer, you got to listen. And how can you be trusted? And by being trusted, the old school of management is command and control. I tell you what to do and you follow. The current school of management is a little bit more of like coaching your kids and helping things happen. It's listening, it's supporting, it's giving reasoning, it's giving rationale, it's giving support and opportunity. And to be trusted, you have to continually demonstrate vulnerability, not something from the old days, integrity, authenticity. People have to want to trust you and follow you because you're showing to them that you're trustworthy. And so to be a good leader, you've got to be known, liked, and trusted. And that's a really important element. And how are you setting the stage to drive success for your people? You can't just say jump and they say how high. You've got to present an opportunity for them to be successful and help them be successful. And that's your job as a leader.
I agree. You got to be able to be willing to not only just speak it, but do it and be a part of the whole mechanism so they can see the success. I think people be motivated when they are led by those that not only perceive that they have the knowledge, but they share the knowledge and they are part of their whole circle to help them move forward. I think that gives them the motivation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hey, let me summarize that with a single aha message. So I'm all about aha messages. We've got a platform called AHAthat. Free to use, free to share. There are 50,000 aha messages on AHAthat you have access to. I want to share one of the aha messages. It's from my book, Being Seen and Being Heard as a Thought Leader. It's actually aha number 4. And here's what it says, and it applies to, I'm going to use the word thought leader, but it really is about leaders. And so what it says is, good thought leaders are at the top of the mountain. Great thought leaders are at the bottom of the mountain, helping others climb up.
That's deep.
And that applies to leaders, thought leaders, whatever term you want to put in front of it. But we live a little bit more today in a servant leadership role model, servant leadership approach than command and control.
Yeah. You got to be willing to be able to not only be in the front, but be behind those that you are leading. And I think that encourages people to do the best that they can. They feel more engaged into their duties and their tasks of their job or whatever the project that they own. Speaking of good quotes, I found this one. You said a great leader doesn't always have to be the one who does the greatest things, but a great leader can always be the one who gets other people to do the greatest things. And I think that is so deep when you said that, because
that's really beautiful. I know who said that. It was
that's
me.
What you said.
Oh, it was me. Then that's awesome. Even one of my authors. But yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah, because that's what I do here on my podcast. I like to motivate people so they can feel good about themselves, believe in themselves, execute it. A lot of times that I come across people and they have a mindset to say, I don't think I could do it because I don't see it. And sometimes you're not going to see the success until you take the steps forward, and then the success will come thereafter.
You got to take baby steps. You got to believe in yourself. Here's the coolest part. The boundaries, the walls that were put around us as part of the industrial society for many, they still exist. There's still all this silly stuff in the world. But think about and look at some of the people who are remarkably successful today. Nobody put them in that position. They just put themselves there. They just started doing what was appropriate. They started getting a following behind them and subsequently elevated themselves into something spectacular.
Exactly. How do you feel about now the whole platform of social media? Based on what you do,
I don't want to let people think that social media is a be-all, end-all. I don't want you to think that, hey, if you're not on social media today, one day you're going to wake up and then you're going to find the strategy on social media and all of a sudden you'll be spectacular. That's not how it works anymore. And so the best way to say this would be that you have an opportunity to interact with your audience. Let's go back to the know, like, and trust. How do people get to know you? How do they get to like you? How do they get to trust you? Well, if you're seeing somebody doing things in a certain way all the time, that actually is a good thing. First, you're known. How do you get liked? Well, you do likable stuff. For instance, if you are a staunch Democrat or a staunch Republican and you voice that, you're alienating the other half. You will not be liked by the other half. And if that's okay with you, you just have to recognize that that's what you're doing. So you will not hear me talk about politics. You will not hear me talk about religion, regardless of whether or not I have strong opinions on either. It's not part of what my brand is, so I don't talk about it. So before we go into social, make sure you know your brand.
That's true.
Right? And social is not about showing that you could party, unless that's your brand, right? Social is about communicating. So one of the things that we do as a family, I've got a son who's in his senior year of college. We're pretty open about all that we do. We started going to Europe and taking somewhere between 4 to 6 weeks a year. Now it's down to 4 weeks a year because 4 weeks is more than enough for me. So we take 4 weeks a year and we go to some European city. We typically rent a house and have friends and family come visit. And we have been doing that for 19 years.
Wow.
And typically when I'm there, I'm posting pictures. And so I still do business, but I do it late at night because that's the 1 month a year friends and family come first. Mm-hmm. And so if I have any work that comes on, I ask permission versus the rest of the time I love what I do. So it's not work, it's fun. And so one of the things I've done is I post my day on Facebook at the end of the day. Now, what's fascinating is sometimes I may not have heard for somebody for 2, 3, 4 years. And then the first time I hear them, they start commenting on trips I've done like 8 years ago or 10 years ago. But they never hit the like button or never commented. So the thing that's interesting about the world today is there are people who are lurkers. There are people who will look at things, but not necessarily comment. And although I can't possibly pick up the phone and talk to all the people I'd want to interact with, and it's really true that somebody I may not have talked to for 8 or 10 years, because they're seeing me, it's like I'm in their living room. It's like they are continually seeing the person I am. Now, if they don't like who they see, that's fine, right? But if they like who they see, I'm continually being slightly top of mind for them so that when the right person comes along that could be a client of mine, they're going to recommend them. And that's what social media is about, providing value as much as you can to other people. So sharing other people's content. Notice when you talk to me about quotes, I won't take credit for a quote unless I know it's mine. So it could be somebody else's quote, right? And sharing other people's content and getting your brand out there and being the good person that really is inside all of us. And then what happens is those people who are watching and paying attention, every now and then it's okay to say, hey, listen, this is what I do. If you know anyone, recommend me. And if you stumble across it at the right time, you're going to get those recommendations.
That's so true. Yeah. Same things happen to me on my social media. Found out that they have been following you for a while. They kind of just set back, but they know that you're there. And then out the blue, you realize that they like what you do. Sometimes I get private messages on my Twitter account, and I have no idea someone would actually like what I post. But I want to touch on what you were saying earlier about basically sharing your family trips or what have you with your social media. All of that also with being consistent. And I think for like followers or people that are connecting with you on your social media, they want to see consistency in who they think that you are based on how you represent yourself or your brand. And I think that matters. Consistency in that person, their messaging on their social platform tells me more about that person.
Consistent personality. And on a consistent personality, when I did the TED Talk, I really spent a lot of time thinking about this area, and I started thinking about what is trust and how can you garner trust? How can you generate trust? How can you get people to trust you? And I used those three terms. Consistency is a good one. The terms I used were vulnerability, integrity, and authenticity. And so to me, consistency could be a combination of those three. If you're continually showing those three elements, it's hard for people not to trust you. I mean, assuming you're good at what you do.
That's what they identify you with, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're showing that you're not consistent and you're not trustworthy and you shouldn't be hanging out with, well, at least you're being consistent on sharing who you are. It's just that people may not want to hang out with you, right?
Yeah.
Or do business with you.
Yeah. I think you should be, I guess my point is you should be consistent with the brand that you reach to deliver your message, and that's key.
Yes.
So it can be your personality, and to me it can triage over to the messages that you post or what you present, but everybody's different. But I think consistency is the key.
Well, that's how people get to know you.
Yeah.
Right? That's
how they decide to trust you or not.
The real you. So let's say we're talking and you go, hey, Mitchell, I don't need a book, but you know that LinkedIn thing you talked about? Can you tell me about him? And so I could either point you to a video or tell you about him, and then you could say, Mitchell, do you recommend him? And what I want you to do is to recognize that I don't have a vested interest in that. And if I say yes, that carries a lot of weight, because if whoever is I recommend does a bad job, I will never recommend them again other than extenuating circumstances. So here's the world I live in. And I'm going to say this is the world I live in. It's the world I've wanted to live in. And what I realized at the beginning of 2019, I can make that the world I live in. I want to live in the world that we used to live in, the world where we had villages. And in the village world, let's say we were having a party on Friday night. And Tuesday, we go into Sam the Butcher. And we go, Sam, I'm having a party on Friday night. I've got 10 people coming over. I've got my cook who's going to be cooking. They're going to be there around 2 o'clock. Could you make sure that you deliver good steak for about 10 people? You don't have to say anything else. You're going to shake Sam's hand. You don't have to talk about prices. You don't have to talk about delivery. You don't have to talk about quality, because Sam's going to take care of you. That's the world I've wanted to live in. That's the world I'm creating for myself. So when I show and demonstrate consistency, when I show that I'm vulnerable, when I show that I could say I'm wrong when I'm wrong, that if we make mistakes, we make mistakes. When I then tell you, you're going to like this guy. Here's why he's a good fit for you. I don't want you to then have to go to all my friends. Hey, do you believe Mitchell? Yeah. I want to demonstrate to my audience, and I'm doing it out loud, that when I recommend somebody, I'm doing it not because they're paying me behind the scenes, which some cases they do, just to be clear. I want to recommend people because I like them and I know they're going to deliver value for you.
And then by that point, people that will believe you is basically based on because they feel that you're honest and your integrity, and then over time they see the consistency in that, so they know you're going to be real with it, So
there we go.
I think that matters.
And you could say this is a strategy, but what I would actually say, it is a way to live a good, wholesome life.
I totally agree. It matters the seeds that you plant. Good deeds is based on the good seeds that you plant in life.
That's a nice quote.
I think it's true. Yeah.
Oh, I would buy into that.
Yeah. Exactly. All right, question for you. If you had to pick one quote to use every day, what would it be?
No, it's probably the one I already used. So we'll pick another.
Pick another one.
We did a book by a guy by the name of Bill Wallace. Bill's in Dallas. He's been running a networking group for 30 years.
Oh.
And we did a really nice book with him. Let me see if I could see the book. Oh, I could even see the book
What's
and
the
hold it in
title?
my hand. And you know what I'm going to do? It's a hardcover book, so I'm going to do this for the listening audience.
Okay.
It's called Being a Catalyst for Success.
Ooh.
And in this book, Bill says something that once you hear this, you'll never, ever think about it differently. It's the most beautiful quote. And here's what Bill says. Living a good life is determined by the smiles that appear on other people's faces when you enter a room and stay in their faces after you leave.
Oh, I like that.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah. Giving is key. It's the key of life. One of the keys of life. By making someone else smile. And like you said, when you leave the room, they're still smiling. That's cool. Well, I'll talk to your assistant to get the name of the books that you name for those that are listening. They want to go ahead and purchase the book, as well as reach out to you for any projects that they're interested in. And I want to just say thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to interview you.
Oh, my pleasure. As a matter of fact, just to make it easy for other people, I'll do this.
Go ahead.
A single URL you can go to. I've got so many domains, a couple hundred
Yes.
domains, but a single
Yes.
URL you can go to is my name, 360.com. So it's Mitchell Levy, Mitchell Levy 360.com. And at that site, you can connect to me on social media, whatever platforms are relevant to you. You could see a 2-minute customer testimonial video on who I am and what I've done for others. And if you think it makes sense to talk, you could get to my calendar and book time on my calendar. So that's MitchellLevy360.com.
All right. Thank you so much. And thank you for everybody for tuning in for this week for my episode. And so long. Thank you.
Nice to be with you.
All right. For joining me for my podcast episode for my podcast show, Surviving Your Journey to Success, just to give you some information to not only stay in contact, but with the other things that I offer. I provide career consultation, offering the first 30 minutes are free. Thereafter, there is a fee access afterwards per hour and can be discussed on a case-by-case basis, depending on your need. So if it is an emergency and you need some consultation regarding your career or choices that you're about to make moving forward, in a sense, in your personal type objectives, then you can definitely contact me. The primary way to contact me is by email, which is info@nichelanderson.com. Now, I do have a toll-free number on my website. Now, that is actually only for webinars when I'm doing like a free webinar and you're calling in. Once that number is through that medium, and it's only really for that, so it's not really connected to me directly. Now I am working on that, but for right now it's not really, and when that changes you would definitely get a notice of that to go forward. So just to recap, my primary way is info@nichelanderson.com. All right, so the other thing I want to share with you is that I also provide business courses and self-improvement courses. So that overall objective is to help you to create strategies that work for you, to get you motivated, to identify the ways to get your or keep your joy and your mental peace. So I do provide that on the basis of your objective to gain success, and as I like to say, sustain success. You can find information on my courses that I release on my official website, which is www.nichelanderson.com, and you can go there and you can look at the different courses that I am releasing that are available. These courses are self-paced. They will be identified if they're considered to be like live sessions on a regular basis, but for the most part they are self-paced. During that time I do have live sessions that once you have signed up for the course, you will see that in the schedule of what days that I'm available live, that you can talk to me and we can go over the courses going forward, right, on those particular topics. So that information is basically on my website that you can go to, which is nichelanderson.com. Now, I want to do a special call out for listeners that I have seen in my stats that are following me, continue to follow me, which I am thankful for. Now, to get connected more, to stay connected, I'm asking you to consider to join my newsletter that I do send out. And to do that, you just have to submit, of course, your name and your email. I don't spam. You can always request to be taken off the list. I don't send thousands of emails because I don't like thousands of emails from a particular source. So I keep it in a way that's informative, of course, because obviously you like the content because you hear and you enjoy it and you're getting something from it, which pleases me. To expand that and to move forward and to get into other ways that I can expand what I'm trying to do is to form a newsletter, to get that set up in a sense that I'm communicating, that I can send that out more quickly, actually, through a podcast or any type of thing or production that I'm doing, where a newsletter is more, in the sense, faster to get that contact and to send it out on blast, right? And more opportunity to send more content compared to like social media characters to be able to get that message out. So do consider that to join my newsletter by providing, and you can find that link at the end of each episode. I have that link to basically to sign up here for Nichel E-List Tips newsletter. And you could do that and you can see that and click, and it's a short form, online form. It is secured and you can complete that. All right. The other thing I want to talk about is basically to subscribe to this podcast. If you haven't, please go ahead. Of course, this is going through Podbean. I have 2 podcasts. This one, of course, you're listening to is Surviving Your Journey Towards Success. And you can subscribe. Of course, you should see the subscribe button here at the bottom of this episode or at the top, whichever device that you're using. Now, I'm also available on iHeartRadio, on Spotify, on Google Play, on iTunes, and any other podcast directories for feed distribution. You can connect that way and subscribe. And if you like it, share it. Now, I am on social media. And so you do hear me a lot talk about Twitter. I'm mostly active on Twitter. I'm also active on Facebook. For the most part right now is Twitter. And I like the whole concept of keeping it short and sweet. In my closing, I want to say thank you again for joining me today. Here is my closing statement for you. Be you that strengthens and inspires your ability to be strong in your journey endeavor. It's a good thing towards your mental peace and joy, always to your success.